Hey, thanks for tuning in to News OK TV. I'm Dave Morris. Coming up in this week's edition of News OK TV, why young athletes from across the country were in the Sooner State this month, a look at some of the developments downtown, and why National Geographic is photographing hundreds of zoo animals. And why wouldn't they be? Well, we'll tell you. But first, players suited up in their crimson and cream uniforms and went all out for practice. There are some questions about who will play cornerback this season for the Sooners and whether certain players will be eligible to hit the field. OU football writers Jason Kersey and Ryan Aber have more.
The Sooners on the field for the second day of padded practice on Tuesday. I'm Ryan Aber from NewsOK.com here with Jason Kersey. Jason, we actually got to see a little bit of practice this morning, which is very rare. What were some of the things that stood out to you this morning?
Well, I think one of the main things that stood out was Frank Shannon not being there. I think that was really interesting. You know, we know that he's been practicing. We know he was there at the autograph session on Saturday at Fan Day, but he wasn't there. And we know that there's this ongoing investigation, and the excuse they gave was he has the flu, which is very similar to the excuse they gave when he wasn't at the open practice in the spring. So I think there's either something going on there. They just didn't want us taking pictures of him, which I think is interesting in itself. But also, you know, Jordan Phillips not being suited up was interesting, but we sort of saw that coming.
It was a great thing just to know that we have so much depth that it doesn't matter who goes down, that somebody's going to be able to pop right in and get the job done.
Yeah, and Jordan Phillips apparently is going to go ahead and practice this afternoon. They're going through two practices, so they want to hold him out of one. That was this morning's practice. But also got a chance to look at DGB in a Sooner uniform for the first time.
Yeah, you know, it's the first time I've seen him in person. He's big, he's huge. You know, I thought it was interesting. Jeff Mead from Tulsa Union, the freshman, looks about as big as him. I know he doesn't weigh as much, but he looks really big too. Way bigger. The last time I saw Jeff Mead, he was playing in the basketball state tournament in Tulsa, and he looks much bigger than that even. So, but yeah, seeing Dorial Green Beckham, saw him make a few catches. It'll be really interesting to see if he gets on the field this year.
Oh, it's fun, man. He's a big guy, you know, real physical. You know, it goes up and catches the ball well, and that just helps me a lot. You know, when I'm on a tight end, kind of that big, you know, or when I'm playing a big receiver. So he's doing a real good job, you know, getting us ready for that, you know, that type of receiver that we play on Saturday.
And on the other side of the ball, one of the position battles that everyone is looking out for is the cornerback spot, opposite of Zach Sanchez. That was a spot that Aaron Colvin occupied last year. How do you see that shaking out?
Well, Julian Wilson adds a whole nother wrinkle to that, I think, because, you know, we knew him as the nickelback. He started some games even the year before, but he was recruited as a cornerback, and he's a guy I think they want to give a shot. They want to give him a shot at that spot. So in the spring, it looked like it was going to be either Dakota Austin or Stan Von Taylor. But now, you throw Julian Wilson in the mix, that just gives them more depth, regardless of who starts.
All right, Jason, thank you. Check out NewsOK.com and the Oklahoman every day for the best OU coverage anywhere.
There are a number of additional videos online at NewsOK.com, interviews with players and coaches, as well as more updates from our sports staff. Hundreds of young basketball fans were disappointed when a lengthy waiting list prevented them from enrolling in Kevin Durant's basketball camp. But the big-hearted NBA player added a second camp and more to allow those on the waiting list the opportunity to attend his classes. Kids from all across the country were in Oklahoma earlier this month to spend some time with number 35.
Actually, I had been waiting over and over and over, and I missed it, so I was on the waiting list. So they sent an email out like months later, and we signed up. I hurried up and signed up like as soon as the email was sent out because they were saying spaces would fill quickly. So it was a process. So we waited. So the initial invite, I was so disappointed because I missed it. So luckily they opened up a new opening. Yeah, so that was great. He was super excited. Actually, he did not know until we were headed to the airport, and he figured out we was going to Oklahoma. He's always wanted to come to Oklahoma, and he said that's what he wanted for his 10th birthday, which is in October. So we didn't tell him till last night in the hotel that we were going to the camp. He fell flat on the bed, literally. He's been to so many various camps, so I like to compare this camp, that camp. Each camp you learn something. You learn a different technique from each camp. So I'm interested to see how well he's enjoyed it. But I'm sure he's enjoyed it because he met Kevin.
Yeah.
So I'm sure this
really
beats
cool.
all from all the other camps. This be all of them.
Okay, last year a couple of his friends were in the camp and they had a great experience. And so this year when we saw enrollment come around, we really wanted to get him in. We signed up. We were a little disappointed because he got on the waiting list, but then we were fortunate that he added a second group, and he was very excited when he heard he got in. Well, we've watched them. We see they set them up in stations, and we watched them move. First station, the day they were showing them some defensive moves, and then we got to watch them move through the stations. And when they came back, then they were applying those defensive moves, and it was neat to watch them go from just kind of picking them up to actually, closing out the shooter with them. We also saw them they did a knockout game, and fortunately got knocked out pretty early, but I think there'll be another chance later.
Durant reserved free camp spots for children affected by the May 2013 Moore tornado. The Thunderstar traveled back and forth between the camps in Norman and in Moore. A number of Oklahoma sports stars were recently inducted into the state's Sports Hall of Fame. Familiar faces and names from rodeo, football, baseball, even broadcasters were among those on the list of inductees.
I was in my early 20s and a young sportscaster. It just seemed the fact that we didn't have a Sports Hall of Fame seemed like a huge oversight. We had so many incredible athletes and coaches that had hailed from Oklahoma. And this was a day when Henry Iba and Bud Wilkinson were still alive, and yet we're not being honored, and people like Mickey Mantle and Carl Hubble were still with us. And I remember specifically on the radio one night that I heard that Joan Benoit had been inducted into the state of Maine's Sports Hall of Fame. And I thought to myself, well, if Maine has a Sports Hall of Fame, we ought to.
Man, this is great athletes. And then the hall recognizes rodeo, and rodeo cowboys are athletes. Maybe back not in the day, but right now they work out every day. They work their butt off. They train. They got trainers. It's completely different now.
It's just unimaginable. Just you walk around and you look at all the different people from the state of Oklahoma, and people don't necessarily see Oklahoma as a sports town other than at the college level. Now you have the Thunder here in town. It's just a great honor.
It was an incredible game. The 89ers scored 3 in the bottom of the ninth to send it into extra innings. And we also had a fairly new technology called the wireless microphone, which meant I was no longer tethered to the camera. And so I had all those things in my mind. And I remember as the ball left the bat, my initial thought was, it's a pop-up. And so if you listen to the call, and I have a few times not too long ago, I say Keith Miller hits it, and now I'm glancing at the right fielder.
Keith Miller hits it deep to right field.
And I realized the ball was carrying much farther than I initially thought.
Goodbye!
And then I'm going out to interviewing him as he crosses home plate, and I realize he's going to be passing me much earlier. And so on the spur of the moment, I ad-libbed into the high five.
People still bring that up all the time.
Oh yeah. Good or bad, it is what I'm most remembered with from the 20 years of broadcasting.
The Oklahoman recently published a series of profiles on each inductee, and you can find those online at newsok.com. A taste of the East Coast right here in Oklahoma City. When we return, we'll tell you when and where you can attend a traditional New England clam bake and sample some fresh Maine lobster. And later, it's the fastest growing sport in the U.S., and it has a firm grip here in the Sooner State. We have some tips on how to play lacrosse that's coming up later on News OK TV.
Shooting more photos at each assignment, but we're putting those into separate galleries that can be added into the iPad and online editions. so that the viewers can see a lot more photographs. We can tell a lot more of the story visually, give them more detailed shots, more overall shots, just a lot more variety that really enriches their experience.
Welcome back to News OK TV. The first full week of August has generated a number of headlines about downtown development. Everything from business space to parking to renovated plans for apartment buildings. I sat down with a man who has his finger on the pulse of the metro, Steve Blackmeyer, to get the scoop on what's taking place in the city.
KC Central today. I'm Dave Morris alongside the man himself, Steve Blackmeyer. He covers everything downtown, midtown, uptown, bricktown, any other /something town. He's probably covering it. But today we're coming at you from the Saturn Grill. Our friends here at Saturn Grill. Check out the pizza. Their salads are really good as well. This segment sponsored by our friends at Nichols Hills Plaza. And Steve, let's get into some of the 2 or 3 big storylines you've been following this week, and perhaps what's the first one?
You know, I think everyone's attention is on the property at Hudson and Reno, where Stage Center is being torn down. It really does look like an apocalyptic scene right now. It's just amazing to see it coming down. It's sad for a lot of people. There's a lot of speculation as to what's going to happen next. We've got some vague ideas as to what the OG&E Energy Corp headquarters will look like on that site. But now we have developers competing for the south half of that block, and the request for development proposals went out today, and it'll be due in October. And there will be multiple parties, I believe, pitching ideas as to how to develop the rest of that block. We also have a lot of activity going on in terms of downtown housing and hotels. Sycamore Square has reversed its plans to convert all of their 2-bedroom units to 1-bedroom apartments. So I've got that story this week, talking about why and what that means for tenants who are leaving.
That's exactly right, because they had approached their tenants and said, hey, change the plans on your lease, change the plans perhaps on the rent. What are you hearing about that?
Well, that's the thing. Some tenants already left. They've got several units now empty, but the tenants who had yet to leave, they're being asked to stay now. So it's a very interesting scenario over there. I don't think that they fully calculated what the costs would be on the conversions. They talked about that. And there may be some market nuances that are in flux with the opening of the John W. Rex Elementary.
You bring up a good point about that school, because there are a lot of families involved here. In fact, they moved down there specifically because of that elementary school going in.
Exactly. And there's not that much family-style housing downtown. So Sycamore Square had a very scarce product that they were actually looking at eliminating. So we'll see if that actually changes for the better.
All right. Be sure to catch Steve's chat on Friday mornings on newsok.com. But before we let him get away today, give us one more storyline.
I'd say the biggest storyline ahead is keep your eyes on the corner of Hudson and Main Street. I've been telling readers and visitors to News OK who check in on the weekly live chat that we may see a tower there, and I'm becoming increasingly confident that we're about to see an announcement for that corner maybe sometime this year.
Ooh, there's a good tease ahead to some potential future coverage. There's a lot of parking going up downtown too, and
yes,
that has certainly been needed.
Yes, and I had a story Sunday about that. We're about to see 1,800 parking spaces added downtown. The garage expansions, new garage being built, are providing that supply. It will just about cover existing demand, but demand is going up. And I have several people telling me that we're going to see more structured parking built this next year.
What time's the chat on Friday, Steve?
The chat will be at 10:30 a.m. And as usual, people can start submitting their questions and comments at 10 a.m. and the conversation starts at 10:30.
And let's just give them some quick guidelines. What sort of topics are right in your wheelhouse for people to ask you?
Oh, anything from downtown events, what thinking goes into how public improvements are going on downtown, the politics behind Quarter Shore, things going on with the final design of the downtown boulevard, obviously all the questions involving what additions we're going to see to the skyline, all the new downtown housing that's going on, and we're not done yet with all the new downtown hotel construction either.
So clearly there's nothing to talk about on this chat.
Nothing at all. It's really kind of a slow news day.
Steve Lackmeyer, follow him on Twitter. He keeps his finger on the pulse of Oklahoma City and the stuff that happens down there by the skyline of downtown. Follow him on Twitter. He's got a blog at okccentral.com. And, of course, that live chat, 10:30 every Friday morning. Steve, thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Big thanks to our friends here at Saturn Grill and Nichols Hills Plaza for sponsoring this edition of OKC Central. And located just off camera from that interview, just to the left, camera right, if you will, was a lady named Linda who was sitting there just taking in the entire discussion. Pretty cool. She actually had some really good questions before we fired up the cameras, wanting to know what was going on in the Nichols Hills area, which is where we taped that. We'll sit down with Steve each week to talk about the latest news from the heart of Oklahoma City. You can also ask Steve your questions, just like Linda did, about all things downtown by taking part in his weekly live chat. That's every Friday morning on newsok.com. Another co-worker with a vast knowledge of what's taking place in the metro, Dave Cathy. He sat down with well-known chef Bruce Reinhardt to talk about an event at Rococo that was so popular last summer, the restaurant decided to host it again. The Food Dude has more on Rococo's Clam Bake that's taking place this Saturday, August 16th.
I'm Dave Cathy, the Food Dude, and I'm at Rococo, gearing up for a very exciting event, a clam bake. That's right, an old-fashioned New England clam bake, and here to tell us about it is owner and chef Bruce Reinhardt.
It'll be our second annual New England Clam Bake at the original location at 2824 North Penn on Saturday, August 16th. We'll kick it off right at noon. We'll have some summer brews available, but each and every one of you will get £1.25 pound fresh Maine lobster. We'll be overnighting them. We're going to do clams, we're going to do mussels, or maybe I might even bring some pissa clams in and we'll do steamers. We'll do sausage, we'll do corn on the cob, we'll do slaw. We'll do what I call from back east dirty chowder. So we'll have a clear broth clam chowder in the style of Rhode Island. But we're encouraging about 50 of our intimate friends to join us here again at Rococo Penn, the original. I'll be in shorts and a t-shirt and just having a ball. We'll have sand and shells and have some fun. It will be only $60 per person, and we'll have to secure your reservation with a credit card and or get payment prior to that. So please join us August 16th, noon straight up. Call 528-2824 to secure your reservation with a credit card. Our great friend Delancey from Fouget Seafood is going to help us with the order, and we can get it to him in a timely fashion and get him overnighted from Massachusetts. Well, part of my passion and part of why Rococo is what it is, and we're East Coast, is that's where I'm from. Born and raised in Connecticut, grew up in the Atlantic Ocean and Long Island Sound, and this is what we did. This is awesome. You know, we fly fresh fish from New England down 3 times a week. Darn it, we got some of the best seafood around. But the clam bake represents New England. It's the epitome of old world. Everything is there. You know, we'll even do some boiled eggs, because in the classic clam bakes, you put an egg on the top, and when that's cooked through, everything that's down through it is done. You know, I was the culinary director at Legal Seafoods for years, and you know, it's just our passion. You know, and I'm wicked excited. Had to throw that in.
Bruce is a great guy. He usually tweets out a Wahoo Wednesday on Twitter or Facebook on Wednesday of each week, and he wears very loud chef pants. That's pretty much all the ad-lib I have from that video. I've actually never had a clam bake. I've had a few clams. They're decent, not my favorite. Really depends on the chef, and Bruce is a really good chef, so my guess is those are pretty good. All right, coming up, thousands of kids across the state are headed back to school, but for some students, the first day of class is a very special experience. After the break, we'll visit the school helping dozens of homeless children.
Social media gives readers a voice that they can interact with us in a way that I don't think they've ever been able to. And it allows us to, include their thoughts and their questions and everything in our content.
Whereas we used to just publish and just tell everybody what the news and entertainment and information was. The rest of the world wants to engage. They want to talk back. They want us to talk back to them. They want insight, they want opinion, and a lot of that is new culturally for a newspaper.
The concept of the What's It Like is that we want to explain basic medical procedures to our readers. There's been a lot of interest in the series. We'll have people who write me who have had something done, but they didn't know that was how it was done because they were asleep. I've had people who have the procedure done and they'll write me and say, yeah, that's what happened. And so it's been really interesting.
A new school year is off to a positive start for dozens of school-aged kids. On the first day of school, students at Positive Tomorrows were greeted by new backpacks full of school supplies. The school is a privately funded school for homeless children. The staff helps guide their students through typical classroom activities, but also addresses social, emotional, and academic issues that are not typically addressed in traditional schools.
We are a private tuition-free elementary school that specifically serves students who are homeless. So when I say that our students are homeless, they live with their families in local homeless shelters, places like City Rescue Mission, Salvation Army, the YWCA Battered Women's Shelter. We also serve students who are couch homeless, which is kind of what it sounds like. They're sleeping on someone's couch maybe for a night. These are our kids that may spend a night in a car. They may spend a night in a motel, so they have a lot of challenges. Our students have a lot of barriers that get in the way of learning. Transportation, hunger, access to basic necessities, just the chronic stress of being homeless, and we're in the business of breaking those barriers down. You know, our parents and our families are worried about where their next meal is going to come from and where they're going to sleep tonight. It's really hard for our kids to focus in the classroom. That chronic stress, you know, that cortisol is coursing through their bodies, it's affecting their development, it's affecting their ability to just sit and share and be in a classroom. You know, you see these little kindergartners that didn't have anything to eat over the weekend. You know, we work with them though to alleviate those issues. Our case managers, we have case managers on site who are working with our families to help them get back on their feet, to help them increase their income levels, to help them get into housing or to get into better housing if they're in a shelter. And sometimes it's something as simple as a birthday party. Every year we have children who've never had a birthday party before. They've never blown out the candles on a cake and made a wish. And we do that. We have a separate party for everyone, and it's about more than the cake and the candles. It's about hope. It's about, oh wow, I got a cake with my name on it. I must be doing something right. This is great. You know, I've had kids tell me their birthday party is the best day of their life and they can't believe it. And that holds them over. That gets them to the next day. That keeps them excited to come here and to learn that you can go to college. You know, we take a field trip every single year, multiple field trips to universities. Aside from just all of the reading and all of the, you know, conventional school stuff, we're teaching them if you fall, you can get back up. And here's how. And you're going to be able to do it.
To learn more about Positive Tomorrows, including how to volunteer or donate, you can go to positivetomorrows.org or you can call them at 556-5082. A group of children in Norman got a chance to try their hand at a sport that's gaining ground in Oklahoma. It's the sport of lacrosse. The Edmond Lacrosse Club traveled down I-35 to teach kiddos between the ages of 8 and 14 the rules of the game.
The origins of lacrosse, there are still a lot of Native American Indians that play the game here. There was a stickball game, I believe, about a month ago at a convention downtown, and they brought the game here, and we're looking to expand on that.
I played for my school, Jinx, last year. It was their first year having a team. So, yeah, I just kind of signed up for it because I thought it looked fun, and I just fell in love with it. It was really fun.
So it is a new sport. It's a non-traditional area for lacrosse, where lacrosse is really big on the East Coast, and in Colorado and other parts of the country. It's growing here, and we're hoping to grow it more. It's a great game. We have been playing it up in Edmond and Oklahoma City for a few years now, and we're looking to spread the game all across the metro area. So we came down here to Norman to hopefully start a program down here.
I've played soccer and basketball and sports like that. This is way better than any of them. I think more people should play.
Lacrosse is considered to be one of the fastest growing sports in the U.S. The Edmond Lacrosse Club is one of the largest and most active lacrosse clubs in the state. It's an arc of sorts. When we come back, what nature photographers hope to achieve by photographing hundreds of animals in captivity. A startling number of the world's creatures are losing their habitat, and as a result, their numbers are quickly dwindling. According to National Geographic, half of the world's plant and animal species will be threatened with extinction. So the magazine is working to create a collection of photos to help raise awareness about conservation.
Well, I was born in Ponca City, Ponca, as we say in Oklahoma. I grew up in Nebraska and have been with National Geographic for about 25 years. I'm working here at the Oklahoma City Zoo today for a project called the Photo Arc. It's studio lit portraits on black and white backgrounds of every captive species on Earth. The Photo Arc is a 20-year effort to photograph every captive animal in the world. And the goal is to get people to know about biodiversity and species extinction and get them to care and to save species while they're still here. I've been on the project about 9 years and photographed almost 4,000 species so far, so I'm about a third of the way done. We actually have saved a couple species, or at least given them more hope. When people learn that species are in trouble, they do care, and they're moved to try to save species, and that's what the Photo Arc's all about. People hear that the world is getting pretty run down, that species are in trouble, and that's true. But there are lots of things people can do to save species right here in Oklahoma, from planting milkweed in their backyards, creating butterfly gardens, to coming to the Oklahoma City Zoo. If you want to spend your money at a place that's seriously breeding critically endangered species, become a zoo member and come down. That's a direct way you can save species, so become a member of the Oklahoma City Zoo.
So in addition to the elephants and giraffes and monkeys or whatever, there's some animals there you perhaps never have seen. And you can also purchase prints. Check that out at the Oklahoma City Zoo. All right, that's all the time we have for this edition of NewsOK TV. All these videos and plenty more can be found online at newsok.com. Have a great week, everyone.